Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Reflections. My name is Fred Govea here from New York City to the world, welcoming you to another Around the Fire conversation series where we bring people from all walks of life to talk about their personal and their spiritual journeys, the tools that they found along the way, and how those tools helped shape who they are and the work that they do today. And we usually have a backdrop. I'm going to bring her here. She's only joining us via audio, so you're going to be able to hear her voice, but nevertheless, we can still engage. Please ask your questions, your comments. And here's Julia. Hey, Julia, can you hear us? Good
I
evening.
can. Yes. Hi, Fred. How's it going?
Welcome. Very good. Thanks for being here with us. So I'm going to put our opening vignette for people to get into the spirit of our conversations. And right after the opening vignette, we'll introduce Julia and we'll start our conversation. So here we go. All right, that gets us in the right mood. And for those that are watching on Instagram, just as a reminder, I disabled the comments there. So if you have any questions and comments for Julie and you're watching on Instagram, please hop over to our YouTube channel. The link is in the bio and you can ask the questions there. So I'm going to formally read Julia's bio for those that don't know her, and then we'll get right to our conversation. So Julia Pimsleur is a scaling coach, a mindset expert, and a best-selling author. She's a founder of Million Dollar Women, a New York City-based social venture which has helped thousands of women entrepreneurs scale up their businesses. Pimsleur also built the #1 language teaching company for kids, Little Pim, into a multi-million dollar business. Pimsleur is the author of Million Dollar Women, an Amazon bestseller, winner of the Axiom Business Book Award, and the forthcoming Go Big Now, 8 essential mindset practices to overcome any obstacle and reach your goals. I definitely need to read that. I'm going to put it on my list about getting and keeping the Go Big mindset. She interviews guests and shares Go Big tips on her live show, CEO Check-In, which is on her IGTV and has amazing tools. You guys should definitely check out the insights that she shares. And on the Million Dollar Mind podcast. You can sign up for all of these things and download the books at juliapimsleur.com. We're going to put it on the screen. And you can follow her on social media, which I'll also put it on the screen. And on a personal note, she's an avid scuba diver, and she lives with her sons in New York City, right up the street here for a few blocks away from where I am. So, Julia, now on to you. Welcome.
Hi, Fred. Thank you for that nice introduction. And I'll just amend it with one thing, which is the book is now out. Go Big Now is available, and would love for folks to check it out who are interested in learning more about the Go Big mindset.
And I'm putting the link here on Amazon. I'm sharing the screen for people to see. If you type Julia Pimsleur on Amazon, you can see all the books that she has written and released, including all the Little Pim language schools, which is a really beautiful endeavor. So check it out.
Yeah, we have so much in common around language learning, spirituality. I'm excited for this conversation.
That's right. So tell us a little bit about the personal side of Julia. How did you get to where you are today from the beginning, the childhood years?
Yeah, well, I grew up here in the U.S. mainly, but I did go live in Paris for 2 years, which was very transformational for me when I was about 6 years old. my father was asked to teach at the Sorbonne in Paris. He was a professor of Romance languages. He taught other professors how to teach French and Spanish and all kinds of Romance languages. So we packed everything up and went to Paris for 2 years, where my brother and I were put into a French public school, and quickly learned how to speak French and made all kinds of new friends. And it was an amazing couple of years, but it ended with a very life-defining tragedy, which I did write about in Go Big Now, but I'll share a little bit for your listeners because it's probably where my spiritual journey began, which is that he died very suddenly of a heart attack at the end of that time. Yeah, when I was just 8 years old.
8 years old.
So that was, a big transformational moment in my life, and of course in my whole family's life, my mother and my brother. We moved back to the US, grieved that loss, obviously, and went back to a house that he had picked out for us that we'd never even seen. So really tough year after that, but ultimately carried on, as we all do after these tragedies, because you have to, and moved to New York, where I've been ever since. I moved to New York at age 9 and grew up here. And I don't know, how deep do you want me to go?
So the love of languages and the Little Pim school starts to happen around that time?
Well, growing up bilingual was such a huge gift, Fred. I know you had that experience too. Right. And yeah, it's like being able to be part of two different cultures. It's almost like being given two different lives, right? I have my life in America, and I've always been able to get on a plane and go to France, where I have family and can fit right into the culture. And, I'm able to enjoy everything that France has to offer. For anyone listening who, is also a Francophile, you know what I'm talking about, the literature, the films, the food. So that was a real gift that my parents gave me that has paid off for a lifetime, and that I wanted to make available for other children. I was sort of incensed that in the US, it's really just the kids of the 1% who have access to language learning at a young age, even though that's the best time to learn, is 0 to 6. And I was lucky to learn, at 6 to speak French, and it was effortless to learn at that time. So when I, grew up and had a child of my own, I wanted to teach him French. And that's when I found out there was nothing on the market to teach little kids a second language.
Little kids, right, in a fun way, right?
Exactly. And especially at the time they learn best, which is 0 to 6. So that's when I started my language learning company, Little Pim, which was named after, my last name, Pimsleur. So a bit of an homage to my father, who created a method for adults to learn a foreign language called the Pimsleur method. So I was inspired by that, and inspired by, my own motherhood, wanting to teach my own son, and then pulled in my background as a filmmaker and created this multimedia series to help young children learn a second language.
And today there's languages, like how many? There's tons, right?
Yeah, we have 13 languages: Chinese, Japanese, Hebrew, French, Spanish. We have 13 different languages, and we're sold in 22 countries. And I'm just so thrilled we've been able to help so many parents give their children this gift. People who didn't necessarily have access to expensive language classes, or bringing in a babysitter from another country, as families will do when they want their kids to be bilingual. When I look at the through line in my life, I think there's a big theme throughout my careers. I'm on my 4th career. And I think the theme is accessibility, that I've always been very interested in making things that are inaccessible more accessible. And I felt foreign language learning was one of those.
Gotcha. And Julia, take us to the part of giving birth to books, because I think that's such a spiritual process as well, like giving birth to children in a way. And before we went on the air, I mentioned that I had heard from a friend that he mentioned that there are a lot of financial people with spiritual crises, and a lot of spiritual people going through financial crises. And it doesn't have to be this way. And I think you embody that in all the work that you do, in the conversations that I hear with you giving to the $1 Million Women, the CEO check-ins. You bring a lot of spiritual content, even though you're not talking about spirituality per se. And I think it has to do with this issue of accessibility and really serving as opposed to selling, something that I also learned from your channel. So the giving birth of the book, just like a composition of a composer, sometimes there's a lot of pain involved, a lot of struggle and suffering. Was that how it was for you? Or maybe you can bring us to that moment for you.
Sure, yes. Well, I think that both of my books, I mean, I don't count the little kids' books, although I'm proud of them. We wrote 4 books for children to learn a second language, but to me, that's in another category. But
Right.
my books for adults, Million Dollar Women and Go Big Now, I think both grew out of a desire to share something that I felt very privileged to have access to and wanted to make it more accessible, back to that theme. So with
Right.
Million Dollar Women, I started that language teaching company, Little Pim, and we got to about 400,000 in revenues, and people were starting to say, "Oh, you're a success, and you've been written up on these, top 100 entrepreneurs to watch and things like that." But I really didn't feel like a success. I was very anxious about money, and the business was not making the kind of money I needed to support my family. I was one of the chief breadwinners in my family. By then, we had 2 little kids at home. And I was also working so hard all the time, as many entrepreneurs do. You start
Right.
this company thinking, oh, I'm going to have all this freedom. And then, in fact, you're just working all the time. And I didn't know if there was another way, or if I
Right.
just maybe had made a mistake. And no, I could not be the CEO of a successful company. I had been a creative person after all. So I did consider quitting at one point. It was a very dark moment where I thought, you know what, even though I poured my heart and soul into this company and I love helping parents be their kids' first language teachers, it's just not providing for my family. This is so stressful. Maybe I'll just, go get a job. And happily, I found coaches and mentors who helped me through that and showed me a whole different way of working, which ultimately allowed me to build Little Pim into a multi-million-dollar business. We raised $6 million in venture capital.
Nice.
And yeah, I just felt so grateful for that. And that's when I found out, Fred, how few women ever get to 1 million in revenues. It's only 2 to 3% of women entrepreneurs ever get to 1 million. For women of
Only
color, it's fewer
2
than
to
1%.
3% of women get to $1 million in revenue in their personal entrepreneurial business, right?
Correct.
Their own
Most
business.
women-run businesses stay very small. So women are starting a lot of businesses. We've actually started about twice as many businesses as men in the last 20 years. But most of those businesses are making under $100,000 a year, and they don't have any employees. So women are really just creating jobs for themselves, jobs that don't have good benefits and are very high risk.
Just to get by, kind of thing.
Correct. But I don't think that's what they want to be doing. I think
Right.
much like me, I got to 400,000 just through a lot of grit and hustle and hard work. But I didn't realize there was a whole other way of working where I could access capital, where I could grow a team, I could have international distribution. And so that's really why I wrote Million Dollar Women, was to inspire more women to think big and pursue the bigger version of their company and teach them some of those skills. And that led to a career change. I wound up leaving Little Pim after 9 years, and we hired a new CEO. I stayed on the board. I'm still founder, but no day-to-day role. And I
Got it.
started the social venture, Million Dollar Women, where we are helping 1 million women in the US get to 1 million in revenues.
Fantastic. Beautiful. And I think the go big mindset is sort of the next step in the trajectory here, right?
Correct. Yes, that grew directly out of doing Million Dollar Women, because I gave talks all over the country and in some other countries as well, where the book came out. And I found that in these rooms of, 100 to 1,000 people, when I was talking, whether it was New York, London, or Sydney, Australia, I said, it only takes 3 things to go big in business: the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right network. And when I asked these rooms of people, Fred, from 100 to 1,000 people, what is the hardest part for you? What's the part that you struggle with the most?
For sure, the mindset.
You guessed it, right? Almost all hands went up for mindset in all these rooms all around the world. And that's when I realized, okay, this is going to be my next book. Certainly that was what was the hardest part for me. I worked with a mindset coach when I wanted to grow my business and realized I didn't have the skills I needed. And without having done that mindset work, I would not have been able to go learn the skills that I needed to take the business big, like raising capital, like growing a team, hiring people away from Disney, all those things. First, I had to get the mindset right and then do the skill set. And that's what Go Big Now is about.
So that's the foundational part where I think a lot of people sometimes hear the word coach and they go, yeah, I'm just going to go there, fill out a few spreadsheets and do a few exercises and that's it. It's much like psychotherapy in a way, which you got to dig deep, and it takes a long time for you to really make the shift, I guess, right?
Well, yes, and back to your great statement earlier, which I love, of, a lot of finance people are having spiritual problems and spiritual people are having financial problems, is I really felt that there needed to be a better bridge between the world of personal development and the world of business. I've spent the last 15
Yes.
years with one foot in each, and I learned so many incredible mindset tools from some of the top teachers in the country and in some cases in the world through workshops I attended, private coaching, books. And I spent, hundreds of hours, thousands of dollars, plus I'm very passionate about it and it helped me a lot. But then in my business circles, people didn't even know what I was talking about or who these people were.
Right.
And yet, as an entrepreneur or even just an ambitious person in business, whether or not you have your own company, you need these tools. I mean, these are life-changing tools. So that's what got me interested in having my most recent book, Go Big Now, be a way of making it really simple and accessible, again, to use that word, to find out what are the main mindset practices I should be using that are used by successful, leaders, CEOs, people who I call finish line crossers of all kinds. They could be Olympic athletes.
Finish line crossers.
Yes, like that's my term. Because if you start interviewing finish line crossers, people like Richard Branson, right, who founded Virgin Airlines, or Elon Musk, or, an Olympic athlete, they all do certain things. And if we had easier access and visibility to what those things are, wouldn't we do them too, right? And so that is what the book does, is kind of unpack these 8 mindset practices that most successful people are using, even if they don't call them that. I gave them some easy to remember names, the 8 practices. So I named them so they're easy to remember. But I guarantee that if you were sit down tomorrow with Oprah, she would say, oh yeah, I'm doing half of these.
Perfect. No, and I think one of the biggest challenges is switching from selling something, since every entrepreneur is selling a product or a service, into the serving part. And that's something I even personally struggle with. And I think it connects with what you love to do versus what you need to do in life, and how you reconcile both in this mindset change.
Yes, and I do teach sales, so I'm glad you brought this up. It's not part of Go Big Now, but I have a sales program I created called the Sales Cure, where the principle behind it is, how do you exchange selling for serving? Because when you reframe sales around serving your customer or client, it affects every conversation, it affects your attitude, it affects how you go into each call. And then I also teach a method that goes on top of that called the Sales Cure, where you have an actual method to use every single call. But that's for another podcast.
Yeah, totally.
I love what you said. Yes, about trading serving for selling for serving.
Right. That's the Sales Cure.
That's the method.
Perfect. So you can see, friends, this is just a tip of the iceberg here. We didn't put enough wood on the fire tonight, so the fire is already starting to burn out because we have to go. Julia has another commitment at 7:30. So this is just for us to get curious on her work. And in many ways, this is part of a very spiritual journey that is giving fruits in the business world and in the self-development world. And the more we know ourselves, the more we can contribute and become finish line crossers, as you say. So Julia, I want to thank you so much for being available at this hour for us here at Spirit Reflections. We'd like to get everyone involved here to get your book, Go Big Mindset, because we all have
Go Big Now. Yes, I would love folks to find it. And I also did make available, Fred, a free Go Big Mindset assessment on my website. So it's just at juliapimsleur.com. If you click on Go Big Now, you can take the free assessment and start your journey there. Or if you're already on your Go Big Mindset journey, I'd love to be part of it. It's not just for beginners, but even if you've never thought about mindset before, there's something for you.
There's Julia's website, guys. If you want to take this journey seriously, do the assessment on this link here, and you'll be able to download the 8 insights that Julia puts on the Go Big Now mindset, which I think is so important, because we always end our Spirit Reflections episode with a song from the group The Fifth Dimension called "The Age of Aquarius" from 1969. It says, "Let the sun shine in." So when we let the sun shine in, when we're open to the world and we're receptive and humble to learn, We connect the sunshine, we let it in, and we connect with our own inner light. We let that shine, and we can really do miracles in this world. So, with that, we're going to close with our closing song. And I want to thank you once again, Julia. And we'll see everyone here on another episode Around the Fire on Spirit Reflections. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for
everybody.
having me on. That was such fun. Good night, Fred. Good night,
Have a good
everyone.
night.